I don't come from a horseshoe background, a horse background. No, my father was an engineer. I have a brother, younger brother, 12 years younger than me, who was also a farrier, which I trained, and we survived. We survived the relationship. And I have an elder sister. But I didn't have any involvement with horses until I had my first riding lesson when I was 12. My mother and father bought me a riding lesson to keep me out of trouble. And I had my first riding lesson when I was 12. That got me hooked. I saw my first horse shod, my first pony shod at 14, and decided I wanted to do that.
Did you keep him home at the time, or were you in a stable?
It was at the stables, and somehow my mother and father managed to find the money from somewhere to buy me a pony when I was 14, and it was the first time that pony was shod was when I decided that I wanted to be a farrier.
You know, what was your schooling like over there?
My schooling. I was not an academic in school at all. I didn't push myself, and I suppose because I decided that I wanted to be a farrier and you didn't need any academic qualifications, I sort of dropped out of school. So I went to school, but I didn't participate much, really, to be honest with you. For me, it was a waste of time. I just wanted to get out. I wanted to work with horses. I wanted to play. I wanted to done some sport as well. I used to do judo. Used to do a lot of running. So not that you'd know now because of the stature, but so really, school for me was not a brilliant time. I didn't enjoy school at all.
So you made the decision at about age 14 that you wanted to be a farrier?
I made the decision at 14. I loved it, and I made the decision very quickly after. So I was about 15 when I definitely wanted to do that. And when I used to I was so transfixed by it. When I used to go to the pony club, I bought myself a little bag and some tools in the vain hope that somebody would half pull a shoe off, that I could take this shoe off. Yeah, that's that. And I was sort of 15 at the time. So that's how I was very, very focused. I was very targeted towards this is what I want to do, and nobody could dissuade me of that decision.
So how did you progress from that into a career?
Well, it was quite difficult to find an apprenticeship when I left school. So I worked in the local riding school. And then I was lucky enough that I did then, at the age of 19, I found an apprenticeship. I started my apprenticeship then at 19. I've done a 4-year apprenticeship. I'd done an extended program because I actually worked for somebody for 18 months, and it didn't quite work out because it just wasn't challenging enough for me. So I decided during my apprenticeship to change my master as it was then. I decided to change because my first master wasn't challenging enough for me. I just felt as though I wasn't being challenged. So, well, the British system is that it is a locked-in 4-year, 2-month apprenticeship system, and over the 4 years, what you do is you are then assigned to a training farrier, an approved training farrier, who historically is your master in olden terms. Welsh Company of Farriers run the examination process. The Farriers Registration Council are responsible for the overseeing the training and implementing. And between the two of them, they implement it. We've got 3 colleges that are presently operating the college-based training. So a candidate, once they're selected, will spend their 4 years. They'll do a 2-month probationary period at the beginning to make sure that both candidate and approved training farrier is suitable. They will then go on from that. Then they will, when they start their apprenticeship, they will do block release at college, and it's all modulated. So we have a very strict modulated program. They will go to college then for blocks. So instead of 1-day release, they will go for weeks. So it's normally 3 weeks in the first block, 4 weeks in the first block, followed by the second block of the first year will be 3 weeks, and there are 27 weeks in total over the 4-year period.
So the group of farriers all across the country that are kind of rotated into these blocks?
Absolutely, and that is the training providers. There are the 3 main farrier colleges.
And at the end of that time, you are awarded a certificate?
Well, no, you take there are two aspects to it. There is a national qualification which is achieved, which is modulated, the NVQ, National Training Qualification. That is at the end of the third year, and at the end of the fourth year, you actually sit and take your exam, which is essentially the Worshipful Company of Farriers Diploma examination. That is in 3 parts. It is obviously a practical examination where you will make a front and a hind shoe for a specific horse, fitted, nailed on, so that all of the marking system is broken down into elements, as you would a shoeing competition, if you like. There is a written exam, which is a 2-hour written exam, plus an oral exam as well. So the examiners have an opportunity to challenge you in both parts.
Does it happen that some people fail at the very end, or is it?
Yeah, they do. Yeah, absolutely. It's a benchmark. It's a very, very good system. It's an exceptional examination process. It really is very, very good. But really, there shouldn't be any reason why anybody would fail. If you keep your standards up and you work to the framework within farrier training, there's no reason why anybody, with the exception of somebody befalling an unfortunate incident, they get a bit overzealous, they burn the shoe on a little bit too much. If the horse is lame at the end of it, then that's unfortunately is a failure. And if you take that element out, that could happen to anybody that's a bit nervous, it represents the end of 4 years at the end of the end of the day. So, these people are very nervous when they take this exam. So they might overdress the foot a little bit, so with that exception, put that to one side, there isn't any reason why anybody should fail the exam.
Is there the option of coming back in time?
Yes, it is, yes. And you can take whichever element you fail on, whether it be the theoretical or the practical. If you pass one element, then you can go back then and just take the element that you not passed on. And you can take whichever element you fail on, whether it be the theoretical or the practical. If you pass one element, then you can go back then and just take the element that you not passed on.
So after you passed your exam with the Worshipful Company of Farriers, how did you progress then?
Well, I despite the fact that I turned my back on school and sort of left without any qualifications at all, really, I had a thirst for knowledge, and I had soul-searching questions when I first qualified, because, as you can appreciate, when you're taught, you have to have a methodology and a framework of which you're taught to, which is the template, and there's nothing wrong with that. But during the course, and especially with anatomy and physiology, I found that towards the end of my apprenticeship, I had soul-searching questions of some of the things that we were taught, and the anecdotal things that were laid down for conditions, etc. So when I started, I practically then just decided to think outside the box a little bit, and very quickly got a reputation for trying, which is what I've always said to people. Nobody ever gets fired for trying something. And there were a lot of lame horses out there, and it was a wonderful opportunity for me, because I basically had an opportunity to do whatever I wanted to with some of these horses, to try to rehabilitate them, to get them back. And we very quickly found that patterns were emerging, that some of these horses were coming back after long lameness issues. So that, obviously, I was locked into that then, and that became my particular interest. Lameness was my particular interest.
Here in this country, we have kind of the perception of a British Terrier being a concave, toe clip, shod with pretty tight heels.
Yep.
Is that changing?
That's how I was taught.
Okay.
That's exactly the process of which I went through. And I very quickly then started to adopt my own style. I had a particular style that I thought was appropriate. And it just happens to be that in today's farrier, the world over, that seems to be the one that's now more adopted. It's much more acceptable. Whereas in 1983, it wasn't quite so acceptable.
Yeah, things change.
And actually, there's a funny story because I was on a yard not long after I qualified, probably about 6 months after I qualified, and the head girl, I was asked to shoe a jumper, and I shod a jumper in the style that I wanted to. I gave it a little bit more length and a little bit more width, and the owner then told me that he was talking to the head girl on this yard, and about what I'd done, and she said it just amazes me. She said because she said he never has any shoes that fit. They never fit. And it's always stuck with me that, there was me trying to portray this sort of, this concept, and I was being judged on the fact that the shoes didn't fit. And actually, in their world, it didn't. It wasn't penny on a penny. It wasn't tight. It wasn't toe clip. It was shod with length. It was shod with width. It was shod with upright heels. And it was something that she'd never appreciated before.
Was that a bit of a hard sell to get people to accept this? Did that happen over time as you had more and more success?
Yes, it did. I have to say that my personality is such that I carve my own road, my own routes, if you like. If I firmly believe in something, then I'm quite happy to carry on down that path. And it was a path that historically was not that accepted within farriery. So I suppose, a lot of my colleagues wondered what I was doing and thought I was a bit mad or something, I don't know.
Did they voice their concerns to you that you'd kind of like
yes,
around the corner?
Yeah, they did. Yeah, they did a little bit. I have to say, not many of them fronted me, personally, but I was acutely aware of what they were saying.
What kind of horses were you shoeing at the time?
Anything and everything. It was. I grew up in the Welsh hills in Wales, obviously, where the Welsh cob stallions. So I cut my teeth on some fairly raw shoeing, really.
But there were some high quality horses.
No, not in those days. No, not at all. They were just mainly. They were all amateurs, no professionals at all, and they were mainly hackers. Happy hackers, what we call them in the private owners in the UK. Happy hackers.
I like that.
Yeah, well, it is because they're happy. That's what they like doing. So.
All right. So. Let's go on in your career then. So how did you make the transition from the happy hackers to the professionals with the high level horses?
To be truthful, I don't know because I don't know. I think it evolved over time. When we started to see some of the effects of what we were doing, and then I had one or two referrals from vets who then would ask me to have a look, and it sort of progressed from there, really. I never consciously went out to think that I'm going to carve a path or a career towards shoeing for professional people. It just sort of it transpired, and over a period of time. Really.
You used to live in the same place when you started out, or did you relocate?
I relocated, but only about 12 miles.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I mean in the UK that's a long way.
Okay, all right.
So relocated about 12 miles. Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about your current business. I mean, do you have apprentices now, and how big a business do you have?
I currently have 2 apprentices, both of which are mature apprentices, so they're not young. In the UK, there tends to be a lot of very young people that go into the industry, and we're getting more towards it is like it's in America now, where you get older people. Somebody perhaps is retraining. They've decided that their profession is not for them, so they decided to come into it. And I've got 2 mature students at the moment, who I have to say they're probably the best ones. Some of the best ones I've had. They're very forward thinking, very dynamic, and I find I get energy from them. You can actually get energy from being with people.
Oh, yes.
To me, it's a great buzz to have them around, because they want to achieve things, they want to do things. Their standards are very, very high.
Are they currently going through the process?
They are, yes. They're one is in the first year, and the one is just started his second year.
How does that work? That like some people that are apprentice with you, they'll go on to stay with you then, or there's some with some masters, or if they have the opportunity.
Yeah, they will. Yes, yeah, they will. Quite a few of my apprentices stay on for a period after whilst they develop their business. What I've tended to do with the majority of them is when they've finished, I've given them a proportion of business, so of general work. Because as they mature into their apprenticeship and they get towards the end, they've been looking after just a few people on their own.
Right.
So I tend to then give them those then as a sort of startup block, if you like. But I think in the UK we're going to see things change now, because there's quite a few Farriers now in the United Kingdom, and I think we're going to see partnerships emerging more. Because I don't think the work is out there now for people starting up on their own as much as it was in our day.
I understand that the process of education has changed a little bit since you went through the process. Is that true, or how are things changed?
Well, I can tell you, hot off the press, if you like, things have changed quite dramatically. We have a system, because it's government funded, we have a system where a government agency come in called Ofsted and do a report. As a result of the report, they were not in favour of continuing with funding currently under the regime that we had. So the regime has now been changed. We had a management agency which is now gone. We're in the process now of handing over the working daily duties of the management agency to the colleges. So they will undertake some of the duties that the management agency took on. And there is a draft of key areas that had to be, that Ofsted report identified that needed looking at for further education within training. And we're currently going through those now and implementing those. The biggest one is going to be that training providers, i.e. masters like myself, will have to hold a nationally recognised coaching and training certificate. So it proves that whilst we might be very, very good farriers and perhaps less, not quite as good at tutoring, it gives them as an ability then to all go through that process. So every single approved training farrier that wishes to continue to train now has to go through that process. So
you think that's a good idea?
I think it's a fantastic idea. I have to say that I'd done it 12 years ago because I recognised that this particular module was right for training. So myself plus 6 or 7 other guys got together and we all took it. And it's probably the one single biggest influence and advancement in my ability to be able to train young people is taking that. So I was a huge advocate for adopting that policy, and I've been instrumental in with the Worshipful Company and with the Registration Council in looking at that to see whether there's a current module that we can use. And that's being set up now by the colleges. They're just.
So is that going to be set up so like in year one, these guys should be able to do this in this process to a high degree of
well, this is for the training providers. This is for ATFs like myself. What we'll do is we will have to attend college ourselves,
right,
and we will go through the process then of the best practice techniques for training and coaching. And that is going to be a nationally recognised certification. So it falls into further education within the United Kingdom and coaching and training.
That's one of the holes in our system, I think, here in this country is the training of our young farriers. I think that's something that we could really benefit from.
Well, I think what we all have to remember is that when somebody is assigned to you and you work, it's like a marriage, isn't it? An apprenticeship with an individual is just like a marriage. Number one, you've got to find the right person that you get on with, and you bond with. And number two, you are going to be the biggest influence on their career, and in some cases their life as well. So I think there is a massive amount of responsibility that goes with training, not just teaching them how to shoe horses, but how to engage with customers, you know, how to get out of tricky situations, you know, and the classic one for me is, I keep saying to them, it's important, as it is just as important to know when not to say something as when to say something. So it's all of those things, isn't it, that, you know, that we've been around long enough that we've made the mistakes. What we try and do is shorten that path for them somehow.
That's a very valuable experience, I tell you. So, were you ever involved in the contesting and all of that sort of thing? That Brits are so good.
Yes, I was, but I was a reluctant competitor, I suppose, really is the best thing. I was fortunate enough that I served my apprenticeship with, you know, the great Billy Crothers. So Billy and I served our apprenticeship together at the same time. He was 12.
Fortunate.
Yeah. Well, it's also unfortunate because if you know, if you try and manufacture anything after Billy's manufactured it, you're never going to get anywhere remotely close to it. So,
but if you get anywhere close, that's better. You're ahead of
absolutely, absolutely. So, so I was a sort of reluctant competitor, really. I did do it in my early days, but and had some degree of success as well. But it never really was my thing. You know, shoeing competitions was never really for me. I prefer the real life, because, you know, how we shoe horses in a shoeing competition is not necessarily how we shoe horses in real life, and it's the real life tricky situations that I prefer. That's the challenge for me.
So, what is your current business like? What is your rig like, and what is it? How do you structure your week?
Well, we have a dual system. We have a static forge and facility, quite a large forge, where all the referrals come into. So that anything that's referred to us will come in. So we'll have an in-house where we have coke fires, gas fires, and everything else that you can think of. And then the mobile rig, of course, in the United Kingdom, it's not like here where we don't have trailers. Then it tends to be actually encompassed in the vehicle. So I have a mobile rig that we go out, but we can do anything out of that. So it's the same as here, really. You know, all the welders, the drillers, right, and everything is there. So we can simulate whatever we want. But I have to say, my preference when I first have referrals is to do them in my static workshop, because it's an environment that is conducive for doing and turning out whatever you want to.
So what percentage of your business do you get to do at home then?
I would say that it's probably somewhere around about 25% is in the forge. But because I do a lot of professional yards now, I do an awful lot of travelling. So when I go, I'm sort of there for the day, really, at a yard. And that means that they're obviously a greater distance away from my facility. And, you know, when you're looking after a yard or a number of horses within a yard, so I try not to be away any more than sort of 2 days if I can, really. And again, we're lucky enough. Although I say I travel a lot, you know, the furthest I travel would be 3.5 hours. So in the UK, that's quite a distance. But I don't do the numbers anymore. So I won't travel great distance and then do the numbers.
What time did you do the numbers though?
At one time I did. That's how we built the business up.
Right.
You know, the business was built up. We had at one time we had 4 vehicles on the road. You know, there were 7 of us running around, and we were just pushing out the numbers. You know, one of the things that people often ask you is, you know, which is your favourite horse? Which is your favourite horse? And they always expect you to say, well, you know, it's got to be Vallegro, you know, because of where he is. But actually, there's a little cob, a little hairy cob that is on the top of or by the side of a coal tip up in the hills, that's 16 years of age, that almost died 2 years ago with laminitis, and we managed to resurrect this from somewhere. And he's been in the family all his life. He's a member of that family, and his name is Charlie, and he's my favourite. And he doesn't do anything. He just goes out for a hack, but he's the most amazing pony, and he came back from the brink of death. So that's the sort of mixture that we've got, and I think that's important because I actually don't see myself as a sort of just working for the elitist people. It gives us a major opportunity. The stuff that we do for a horse that we would, expect to go to a major championship show and win a medal is, we tend to throw everything at it, in an attempt to look after these horses, to prevent injury, and to enhance performance. So research development in any form is what we look at to see how we can do it. But that's what I call the pyramid system. We throw everything at this elite. But actually, it's the people underneath that benefit from it. So the lady that wants to go to the riding club and wants to compete at the riding club has disposable income of a fraction compared to Carl Hester, who wants to go to the Olympics. But actually, in their life, it's exactly the same. So the effort and the challenges that are placed on the lady that wants to go to the riding club and compete at the riding club, to her it's equally as important as it is to Carl, who wants to win a medal. And I think, as a service provider, which is what we are, we're duty bound to give them that service at whatever level that they want. And I really like the fact that we've got customers that I've been dealing with for 30 years, and we're still shoeing their ponies and shoeing their horses as well. That for me is a nice balance.